Gentlemen, obviously, each and every one of us has been impacted and affected in some way by the current pandemic situation globally caused by the coronavirus that causes COVID-19. But I'm telling you, this too shall pass. There are already indications that our world is going to open up sooner than later. And when it does, how will you be different? Will you have simply been a victim of the changes thrust upon you? Will your world have been disrupted without your direct permission, through no fault of yours, for no reason whatsoever? Or have you been building the habits over the last couple months such that you are ready to take the bull by the horns and be intentional about going after what you want from now on? Gentlemen, here's the reality of the situation. There's a lot of talk about the quote-unquote new normal. You can have tremendous personal influence over what your new normal looks like for you. And as my guest today, Tommy Breedlove, and I are going to talk about, having a band of brothers is an absolute must to becoming your best, reaching higher, becoming more effective, and becoming, yes, your legendary self and living your best life. That is why there has never been a more important mastermind group, a more mission-critical group coaching event than Unsettled. You guys can check it out at mountaintopodcast.com/unsettled. What we're doing is bringing together that band of brothers, that like-minded group of men who are going to take control of our lives and disrupt it on purpose. We're going to move things around, reach higher, do more, learn how to live again. Feel what that is like once again. It's all there for you at mountaintopodcast.com/unsettled. And remember, guys, this is something that's been on my mind personally for months and months now. I'm a fellow traveler with you on this journey, not simply moderating it. You can do more. You can aim higher. You can go on bigger adventures. You can up-level your dating life. You can get better women into your life. You can have the career or even the business of your own that you've always dreamed of. But yes, you have to be willing to get up off the couch, emerge out from your comfort, familiarity zone, and yes, go boldly, make life happen for you. Join us, gentlemen, for this all-important Unsettled journey. Join that band of brothers who are like-minded in purpose to live our best lives. www.mountaintopodcast.com/unsettled is where you'll find all the information. Time is of the essence because we're starting May 4th, so jump all over this, gentlemen. And now let's talk more about how to be legendary with my new friend, Tommy Breedlove.
Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X and Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scot McKay.
How's it going, gentlemen? This is your main man, Scot McKay, coming at you again with another episode of the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. You can find me on Twitter at Scot McKay, Real Scot McKay on Instagram, Scot McKay on YouTube. The website is mountaintopodcast.com, and I do invite you to join us on Facebook at the group that is designed for high-character men who want to be better men and have the best woman they've ever met in their lives. That's the Mountaintop Summit on Facebook. With me today is a new friend of mine. I liked this guy as soon as I met him. He has written a book with the very auspicious title, Legendary. How's that, right? We're going to address a topic that could go in any which direction, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this path leads. It's find the courage to lead a life of significance. And I know my guest, Tommy Breedlove, was champing at the bit like a racehorse to get going with this. Welcome, Tommy.
Thanks, Scott. Look forward to climbing this mountaintop with you, my brother. What a badass introduction, by the way. I love it.
I've been told that before. I try to make you guys look good.
You do, brother.
I don't think I'm going to have to try real hard with you. And you're in Atlanta, Georgia. Well, you're in Roswell, Georgia, which isn't too far away.
Right outside of Atlanta. That's right. Real close. Super close.
You believe in masculine men and feminine women, and that is a great place to start. And I'll tell you what. Right now, as we're recording this, We're in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis. If you guys are listening to this 6-9 months hence, you're probably thinking, yeah, you guys are a bunch of warriors. We're long past this thing. Maybe, maybe not. We don't know really what the future holds. But one thing we do know that we've been talking about at length on this show recently is that men are courageous. We don't panic like little children or like little weaklings. What we do is we rise to the occasion and we lead from a position of knowing who the hell we are and what we're about, and that foundation serves us very well when it's time to make decisions that are the right decisions and to act on courage, even when, hey, we may be feeling a little fear. How does that tie into being legendary, Mr. Breedlove?
Well, I think legendary starts with, you said it best, and even when we were talking off air, it starts with courage, right? It starts with taking action, and then, truthfully, all of us are a little bit worried. We're all a bit scared. For us to sit there and act like we're not, that's nonsense. I mean, we all got this feeling, man, because we all feel like we're out of control too, because this is COVID-19, right? Like there's a sense of control that we don't have right now, and our way of life has changed. But to me, it does start with courage. I mean, it starts with taking action. And here's the thing, is a lot of us quit after taking action or something doesn't work. No. Action, continued action, and then, God willing, finishing the drill, because I think that sets apart the 1%. So we all feel the fear. It's like you said, feel the fear and doing it anyway, man. So to me, it starts and begins with whether it's a life of significance, it's courage and taking action.
Yeah. I've never met a legendary wimp before. Unless you count like an actor like Don Knotts, someone who's famous for being funny for that reason. But, it elicits laughter, I'm sure. But no man who has ever been remembered lived a life of fear. I mean, fear leads to a lack of legacy and a life that ends in obscurity, doesn't it?
I think so. I think we've all got some level of fear in our life, but it's what we do with that fear. Do we use it as a catalyst, and do we lean in, and do we run to the fire? And I think regardless, whether it's COVID-19, a natural disaster, a death in the family, a war, and all the other things of the tragedies and suffering that happens in this world, is some of us run to the fire and some of us run away from the fire. And I'm more interested in men who want to step in and lean in, and knowing they don't have all the answers, but they're going to show up each and every day just to be a little bit better than they were before. And I think that's important. And at the end of the day, being legendary, by the way, the title of the book, is all about how people remember you and how you serve this planet and how you left it a better place than you found it. And so to me, that's the people who run to the fire. No one's going to remember you otherwise. Yeah,
it's not about being fictional for sure.
No doubt. No doubt.
Now, interestingly, we talk a lot about women around here and understanding them. The show used to be called The Chick Whisperer because we talked about, I know, right? So 2005 to call it The Chick Whisperer.
It's kind of awesome, though.
Oh, yeah. It really rolled off the tongue really well. The interesting part was when I changed the name of it a few years ago, someone else came up with a similarly titled podcast because I wasn't using it anymore, and I kind of rolled my eyes at that. But I think that calling it The Mountaintop is much more indicative of the larger purpose here of ascending to the pinnacle, the peak of manhood, as I call it, which is kind of, an interesting play on words, but it's what it's all about. So anyway, as far as chick whispering goes, understanding where women are coming from, it's interesting how few women really understand us. I think women largely don't understand men the way most men, frankly, don't understand women. And it has always been shocking to me how many women you can talk to who think men don't have feelings, that we're just young, dumb, full of cum, or old and dumb and full of cum, or less cum as we get older, right? But be that as it may, when they see a movie like, say, Saving Private Ryan, and they see a bunch of 19-year-old kids with military fatigues storming Normandy Beach, certain women, certainly not all, the more mature ones probably have a greater understanding of this. But a lot of young women, especially, are out there rolling their eyes going, boys. They don't care whether they get shot or not. Well, hell no. Every guy who ran out of the front of one of those landing craft, one of those amphibious boats, was fearing for his life. I mean, if you watch the movie, people are throwing up. It's not because of seasickness. It's because, man, this is it. This is real talk. And it's easy to dismiss the heroism and what makes men legend when you dismiss the very nature of our humanity to begin with. In other words, oh, guys are just a bunch of robots. But the women who are worth our time, Tommy, are the ones who understand that men really do, in the name of being masculine and the way women define it, by the way, which is being a provider, a protector, and presiding over our world. Those women who not only get that, but are feminine enough to be attracted to it, which is most feminine women, right? We talk about that at length around here, which is the nature of femininity, by the way, to be attracted to that. Those women will be looking for the legend within a man. And if you're a younger guy, maybe that hasn't really manifested itself. It's all potential. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on how women relate to a man who is presenting himself as legendary, as you define it.
Well, I'll start with the title legendary, because that's something that we don't give to ourselves. If you and me, Scott, started saying, you know what, we're legends, our friends, our family, our inner circles, our wives, they would laugh us out the room.
It's kind of like giving yourself a nickname. It just doesn't work.
It doesn't work, man. Yeah. And it's something we aspire to be, right? I want to be known as legendary, because the great thing about that title, that's what society, our peers, and our families give to us. And think about the great or the horrific legends throughout society. I mean, they've existed everywhere. But I think being legendary, and you talked about those young men who stormed Normandy Beach, the reason they said, F the fear and I'm going to do it anyway, is because they were fighting for something bigger than themselves. They had a purpose. They were fighting against tyranny, oppression, our freedoms, and they knew the enemy was coming to our shore soon. So they felt the fear and did it anyway, because it wasn't about them or their lives. It was about everything they believed in. And so I think when we're talking about women and how do we feel, yes, we feel fear. Of course we feel fear. But we also, I think women are attracted to those men who have self-confidence, who have self-respect, who are men of integrity, who know who they are, what they stand for, who they fight for, where they're going, and who's coming with them, i.e. confidence. And so I think women are attracted to that. I think they're attracted to men who know their purpose, their why, the reason they're here on this earth. And so to me, all of those things, by the way, if you're a man listening to this and you're like, man, I don't know if I can get there, of course you can, because I always wasn't this way. I'm sure Scott would tell you the same thing. And so self-confidence, self-respect, mastering your mindset, and also, brother, cultivating unconditional love for yourself. A lot of us men have a really difficult time receiving love and loving ourselves. These are all fortresses, just like our physical muscles. We can build our heart muscles. We can build our mind muscles. We can build our spirit muscles. We can build our physical muscles. So if you might look at this and say, man, I don't know if I could storm that beach, or I don't know if I could ask that girl out, or I don't know if I could apply for that job or quit this damn job so I can start a new one. All of that stuff can be cultivated. It's just like going to the gym. You got to step up every day, do the work, and it will come over time. That rewiring your brain, your heart and soul, it takes time, but anyone can do it. If I can do it, you can do it.
Well, these traits that define masculinity are in our DNA. And that's the first step for every man listening to this to bear in mind. You were born to be a man. So what you feel in your nature, insofar as, hey, I should be doing this. It would feel great if I could do that. Hopefully we don't have to be pressed into it. Like a situation where we're storming Normandy Beach, or like we've talked about on this show before, where you're faced with a very grim medical diagnosis and people keep asking you, how can you be so strong? And the answer is invariably, because I have to be. It's nice to be able to make one's own decision to proactively be a man who's headed towards legend. In other words, I will face the fear and do it anyway. I've heard this idea of heroism stated beautifully insofar as it really is fighting passionately with courage for an outcome that serves more than just your own personal needs. You are doing something brave and significant to make the world a better place, which is why even the people who work in the grocery store collecting our garbage right now really are doing something heroic vis-a-vis this era of social distancing that's going on at the time we're recording this particular show.
Speaking of legends, right? Speaking of legends, people who don't get paid a lot of money to make our life better and clean. That's pretty legendary, brother.
Yo, you betcha. It's heroic.
At great risk right now.
Yes, indeed. I would love for you to elaborate more, Tommy, on this idea of not feeling like you're enough, to feel like I don't have to be Teddy Roosevelt or Gandhi or someone who is going to be famous for millennia. I simply have to do my part as a man in this world to influence what I'm capable of influencing, or perhaps reaching more broadly to influence as many people as I can. And as soon as I've given it my all, then I can feel good about that. Because I do think a lot of guys really struggle with the difference between being legendary and courageous and being world famous.
Yeah, there's a difference between being rich and famous, and I'm a big believer that money is important, and anyone who says that it isn't, run from them because they're probably broke. But that has nothing to do with being legendary. It has nothing to do with living a life of significance and purpose. And you do not have to be rich and famous. You just have to be a place of service. You have to know your why. And it all starts with, if you're unhappy in your life or your marriage or with your girlfriend, or you feel unfulfilled or angry or sad or judgmental, I want you to do this. And this is going to sound harsh, but it is absolutely legit. I want you to go find the nearest mirror and look into it. That's your problem. And so that's a really big deal. And it starts with the power of choice. You say, I'm unhappy with this job, or unhappy in this relationship, or I want to be more successful, or I want to be more purposeful and fulfilled in life. And it starts with the power of choice. That's where it first starts. We talked about it earlier. The second step is taking action. And so the third step that you asked, the original part of the question, was the feeling that I am enough, that I am worthy, that I am valuable. And at the end of the day, I'm going to do a little woo-woo here, that I am lovable. And so all of us men, as people of competition, we like conquering, we like winning, we crave respect and validation. All of us on some level, depending on the wounds you're carrying from the past, the mistakes you've made in the past, the things that have been done to you or taken away from you, all of that stew and the noise of society. You know, there's this constant on social media, it's all about envy and jealousy and putting our best selves out there. And then you look at the news and it's all about division and fear. So between society pressures, our parental pressures, things that happen, we all have this sense of, am I valuable? Am I enough? And am I worthy? And the answer is hell yes on all those, but you've got to believe it. If you don't believe that you're lovable, worthy, valuable, and enough, and you don't start cultivating that unconditional love and self-respect for yourself enough, it's going to transpire in everything you do. It's going to transpire in the people that you attract in your life, i.e. your friends. You're going to attract the same kind of garbage that if you don't believe in it, it's garbage in, garbage out. And so it's something that I think we don't do enough in society. We talk about physical exercise and being more professionally successful, and we work toward those things. But to me, in order to be truly legendary, yes, you have to be of service and of purpose. Yes, you have to continue moving the ball forward professionally and with your money. But you've also got to cultivate that mental and emotional fortress. And anyone can do it. It takes time. It takes work. It takes steps. But that's the stuff we don't talk about on a day-to-day basis. And we haven't done enough discussion or teaching about it in our society. And for us to be truly legendary and to truly leave this world better than we found it, we have to be emotionally strong and mentally strong. And it's just like going to the gym. We have to get up every single day and do these exercises, whether it's meditation, affirmations, gratitude, hiring a coach, joining a mastermind, surrounding ourselves with like-minded, abundant, impactful people. There's tools and resources available to us so that at the end of the day, we start living with respect and value, and we believe that we're worthy enough and lovable. And so I think that's an important thing that we don't talk about enough as men. That's vitally important for us to be as impactful and living a life of significance. It's just everything, right? And we just don't do enough with it.
So you're talking about basically aligning oneself with a band of brothers so that you have a tribe of guys who are all dedicated to this purpose. And we've talked about it on this show, how most guys are flying solo. We're a bunch of lone rangers. We don't have any best friends. And now in the era of COVID-19 social distancing, and for many that means social isolation, even to the extent where it's by choice in some cases. I mean, you could go out and go to the grocery store, but you kind of like it here. A lot of people are building a habit that started long ago with social media. Social media socially distanced us from each other because we felt like we had, quote unquote, paid our dues and didn't really have to go out and socialize with people in the real world anymore. So what that's doing is, in the name of comfort, it's taking guys away from this purpose of being active agents for change and betterment with courage in the real world. Now, one of the things I've talked about is how confidence is the number one indicator of how well you're going to do with women, because women won't want you until you believe they should want you. And everything else kind of comes from there. And that's something you just echoed. That, hey, first of all, we have to believe that we're born as men, therefore we're worthy of a higher calling, a higher purpose. A lot of men haven't explored that enough to realize how damn good it feels to start fulfilling on that purpose that's innate within us, that's archetypal within us as men. So let's say, Tommy, guys out there are like, all right, okay, check the box. I feel confident. I'm energized. I'm ready to do this thing. What are some steps guys can take to put them on the path of creating new habits towards legendary status? Because I don't think we're going to go from 0 to legend overnight. That's unreasonable, right?
No, and I don't know if we'll ever get there and us know about it. And that's the beautiful thing about this journey, whether it's physical muscles, mental muscles, emotional muscles, spiritual muscles, whatever you're trying to cultivate. We never get there. We're not the perfect human beings. There's no such thing as perfection. And the only thing we're truly in control. We like to think we're in control, and we like to shoot toward perfectionism. And they're both myths. And the only thing we control is our choices, our mindset, and our actions. But you said something I want to go back to, Scott. I think it's very, very important. Isolation is the enemy to excellence. I'm going to say that one more time. Isolation is the enemy of excellence. So when we as men, when we isolate, that's when those demons and voices in our head, I call it the Tommy go round. That's when they go crazy and tell us we're not good enough. What if they know your deepest, darkest desires or your secrets? And we start whittling away, and we are tribal creatures, and we need a great tribe. So it is imperative for us as men who want to live a life of significance to hopefully be remembered as legends. We have to surround ourselves with people who hold us up, who inspire us, who hold us accountable, who sometimes kick us in the face when we need to be kicked in the face, when we've breached integrity, and most of the time just love us, but make us better human beings. So I think it's critically important that we don't lose that great point that you made is we isolate, especially in a social media age, because we think we're connected when in fact we're actually not. So isolation is the enemy of excellence.
I agree with you, and I think a part of that might be the simple fact that isolation leads to negative visualization, which leads to natural entropy.
If you're not growing, you're dying.
Yes. And I mean, if you're not thinking positively, you're going to be drawn into that vortex of thinking negatively. I mean, spend 10 minutes on political Twitter and you'll figure this out. Probably spend 30 seconds on political Twitter and you'll figure this out, right?
It's all the noise. I mean, It's all noise. And so social media, it hurts us because it promotes envy and jealousy because everybody puts their best self and everybody's a political expert and there's judgment, and negativity and cynicism and anger. And then you turn on any political news or social or Twitter or whatever, that they sell advertising from fear and division, us versus them. And if you surround yourself, it's garbage in, garbage out. And if you're surrounding yourself with that kind of negativity, you're going to become negative. And that's why surrounding yourself with positive, significant, upbeat, inspiring people who are also doing the work with you to be better men, that's why it's essential. I mean, it is a requirement to be successful. It's not one of those nice to haves. It's an absolute requirement.
Well, bad news sells, right? Which explains the media bent towards finding something that tells us that the sky is falling. But the interesting part about social media is that negative energy you were talking about, anger, discord, jealousy, fear, that is what causes vocalizations. That's what causes people to grab the mic and say, hey, you know what? I want to talk about this. It's been said in the customer service field that for every complaint you get, there are 10 people who are happy with your service. It's just that the complainers are more likely to tell you about it. And I think that's basically what goes on with Twitter in particular, but certainly in many cases Facebook too. I mean, there are people who want to be agents for positive change and good feelings and good vibes on Facebook as well. But I agree with you 1,000% that when people are noisy and they're vocal, that usually goes south. And we as men need to know how to filter out that noise. And the best way I know how is by what you said, which is finding a group of people, a group of men you trust, and building that group of guys, building that band of brothers and running with those guys. That's why masterminding is so important. That's why trust is so important between guys who have a common purpose. That's why we build friendships around common purpose together as men.
Completely agree. And light attracts light and dark attracts dark.
You bet.
And so if you're stewing in anger and judgment and cynicism and fear and envy and jealousy, that's what you're going to attract in your life. And so once you start doing the work, little baby steps each day to rewiring your mindset, your heart, leaning into the light and leaning into impact and significance and what manhood and men of integrity are all about, these negative, emotional, draining vampires start disappearing from your life, even men and women, by the way. And it's a beautiful thing. But you'll be amazed at how these like-minded, driven, impactful people who want to leave this world a better place, they'll start appearing in your life sooner enough. So it's pretty amazing once you start doing the rewiring. These negative influences do disappear.
I think it's a valid question to ask kind of in closing here. Is anything negative or angry really ever significant? Now, I'm going to elaborate on that by saying, fighting for that which is an injustice, fighting for a wrong that needs to be corrected is certainly significant, but it's not a bitch session. Martin Luther King wasn't bitching about stuff. He was saying, I have a dream, not a nightmare. I have a dream. And here's what the future would look like if we all come together and make it happen. So in order to live a life of significance, it doesn't mean you have to live this Pollyanna-ish life where you're saying, oh, everything's wonderful. You can find a problem that needs to be fixed. You can find a cause that needs to be addressed. We talk about the guys who stormed Normandy Beach. That was a cause bigger than themselves, right? But it wasn't necessarily pleasant. It wasn't necessarily a fun thing to do. So we don't want to muddy the waters here between significance and something that's already wonderful. Doing something significant doesn't mean you're free from righteous indignation. It means that you're looking towards a positive outcome. You're not simply piling on. Like, hey, you know what? This political party is terrible and we need to take them down. Oh, God, yeah, they're horrible. And then it becoming a big pity party or bitch session. It's, hey, look, you know what? If I'm going to come to the table with a problem, I'm also going to come to the table with a solution. And to me, those guys who think like that are the guys who become legendary.
I completely agree. And it's what you do with the anger, right? And
You bet.
This is a great lesson. And this is a beautiful point, Scott, is the flip side of your anger is your core values. Because if something truly pisses you off, that means a value of yours is being compromised by yourself or someone else. And, we're talking about Martin Luther King. Of course he was angry. I mean, there's no reason in the world why people need to be oppressed based on their skin color. Look what he did with his anger, with his movement of peace. And for me, it has manifested itself in my life, in what I do, who I am, what I speak about, what I write about. I was angry. I was tired of ambitious, driven men who wanted to do great things, kept compromising parts of their life, from their health to their families to their relationships, on the pursuit of more and all things better. And I did it myself. It almost cost me everything, from my life to my marriage to a very prestigious career. And I said, I am sick of it. I'm tired of it. I'm mad at myself. I'm mad at all of these things. So I took my anger and I fueled it toward a movement to helping myself and fellow like-minded, ambitious, driven men live a life of purpose, significance, meanings without compromising our relationships, our friendships, our networks, and most importantly, our integrity. So I fueled it in all the right ways, because I could have gone totally the other way. So I'm totally on board with what you're saying. We're angry, yes, because that's what we are, but we fueled and channeled that angry in a very impactful, positive way.
You know, they say necessity is the mother of invention. Change is the mother of legend.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And change it's a mother, man. Ask 1,000 people who want to change the world, 1,000 hands go up. Then you get real specific. Yeah. Are you ready to change? And people, a lot of hands would go down, right?
Yeah. Am I going to wallow in the problem, or am I going to come to the table with the frickin' solution? It's one or the other. And that, in a nutshell, sums up the difference between guys who are headed towards being victims and being those wimps who are forgotten to history versus the guys who are respected in the present and remembered in the future. Love it. And I want to go ahead and point these guys to your book, Tommy, Legendary, which they can find not only at mountaintoppodcast.com/legendary, but they can also find it by going to my Amazon influencer page at mountaintoppodcast.com/Amazon, where you can find Tommy's book Legendary, as well as all the other books authored by my various and sundry wonderful and at times legendary guests. So, Tommy, thank you so much for adding to the legend around here. What a great, powerful, and dare I say, eminently uplifting conversation, which we all need more of, especially at this particular moment in history. Thank you, sir.
Oh, you're very welcome, brother. And here's to all of us climbing that mountaintop, man, and being better men than we were yesterday. I'm very grateful to be here, and thank you for what you do, Scott. It's well needed, and all of your success is well earned. I appreciate you.
Respect, man, and the feeling's mutual. I appreciate that very much. And guys, you can continue on your own journey by going to mountaintoppodcast.com, clicking on the little red button in the upper right-hand corner, talking to me for absolutely free, 25 minutes. A lot of guys have a lot of confusion. A lot of guys are looking for answers right now. You could talk to me. I can be one of those brothers in arms for you, help you sort out where you are right now, where you want to be. And it all starts with a phone call that you can have for free for 25 full minutes by signing up in real time at mountaintoppodcast.com. And until I talk to you again on the next episode, this is Scott McKay from X&Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. Be good out there.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X&Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes. And while you're there, sign up for the free X&Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.